Hello, travelers. Welcome to Fulbright Week at Reach the World. For over 20 years, Reach the World has used virtual exchange to inspire youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. This week, we're proud to celebrate our longstanding partnership with the Fulbright program. Fulbright travelers work tirelessly to foster mutual understanding between the people of the United States and other nations. And under normal circumstances, Fulbright travelers share those experiences abroad with K through 12 students in the US through Reach the World virtual exchanges and school visits. This week, however, we're bringing their stories and the world directly into your homes. You can find a complete listing of Fulbright Week live stream events and much more at athome.reachtheworld.org. It's my pleasure today to welcome back Fulbright Scholar, Fulbright alumni, Paula Escott. Paula is calling from Buenos Aires, Argentina, where she's researching ways to improve healthcare delivery for children in Argentina. And she's going to tell us more about that today. Paula has been sharing her experiences in Argentina through a Reach the World virtual exchange. And we'll get into the basics during this call, but I really encourage you and invite you to visit Paula's exchange homepage after this event to learn more. We'll add a link to that homepage in the chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen. To our live stream viewers today, please use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here and also to share any questions you have for Paula. We'll get to as many questions as we can, and if you drop them in the chat bar, I'll be sure to pass them along. But without further delay, Paula, it's great to see you again. Welcome back to Reach the World.
Great, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So last time we checked in with you, you gave us sort of a basic overview of who you are and what you're doing. You want to recap a little bit and then tell us what you've been up to since?
Sure. So my name is Paula. I graduated last May from the University of Maryland with a degree in public health science. And then this is my gap year doing research in Argentina. I originally came down here as a Fulbright grantee to do research at a pediatric hospital. And I'm looking at ways that we can use technology like video calls, just like we're doing today on Zoom, to reach children who live in places far away from a hospital and make sure that they're getting the best healthcare possible.
All right, I know you had some pictures you wanted to share with us today.
Sure. So I have a little slideshow for you of some pictures of what I've been working on in Argentina. So this is where I'm living right now. I moved last week to a new house from where I was last time, if you guys were on the call. I'm still in the same neighborhood in Palermo, so it's kind of like a residential neighborhood, lots of houses. And I live in a house that has a nice hammock out back. And a big living room, and I live here with a family and 2 cats and a dog. So there's a lot of people to keep this house busy when we spend a lot of time together. And this is just to show you kind of like the hospital where I would be doing my work. Of course, we're still following stay at home and social distancing. But if I was going into the office, this is the hospital. Hospital Garrahan is the top pediatric hospital in the country. And this is the team that I work with. We work in an office called the Coordination of Institutional Networks, basically. So they connect all the pediatric hospitals across the country. Argentina has a public healthcare system, so the government is responsible for running these hospitals, and this office keeps all the doctors connected at the hospitals and helps kids get the healthcare. And so this is just to show you what some of our video chat rooms look like. So this is what I do with telemedicine. Using video conferencing and technology to connect the doctors, to connect the office people, to have a patient in one city be seen by a doctor in another city. So this is what our big conference room looks like. And then in the picture on the right, you can see that is a conference that was happening between doctors at like 6 or 7 different pediatric hospitals across the country. So that's kind of how the telemedicine looks from the coordinating end. But what I'm doing is more looking at outcomes from it. So what happens after someone has an experience with this telemedicine system? Did it improve? Did they learn something? Did a child get care? So this is mate. The mate is a tradition in Argentina. It's really cool. Essentially, it's a caffeinated drink. So if you think kind of like a really bitter green tea, and it's like the national drink in Argentina. Everyone drinks it. What you see on the left is the grocery store. Those are all different types of herbs you can buy to put inside your mate. So the mate is the name of the container, and the yerba, the herbs, are what you put in it, and you just pour hot water over it and then use it with a straw. And the straw has a filter on the bottom that keeps the leaves from getting in when you drink it. And the cool thing about this, I learned to drink it when I worked at the hospital last time I was here. And it's shared between everyone. So we would be having a meeting and someone would pour hot water into the mate, they would drink it, they would pour more hot water in and then pass it to someone else. And that was a way that people connected and shared an experience while we were having a meeting together. So people do it during meetings, they do it when they go to the park, people do it in the living room, in a house when they're spending time with friends. So it's very Argentinian. And then as I was going through some of my pictures to show you, I got excited about places where I was ready to go once we're allowed to leave the house again. So one of the cool neighborhoods in Buenos Aires is called La Boca. So La Boca is right on the mouth of the river. La Boca means mouth. And it is a really brightly colored neighborhood. You can see how all the buildings are painted in different colors. And that's because when people first started living in Buenos Aires, this is where the ships came in. And so people used leftover paint from repairing the ships in the docks. They would paint the ships, and whatever was left over, they used to paint their houses and the buildings. So that's how you ended up with this kind of mixed match, colorful streets. And then even though today that doesn't happen as much, they've maintained that tradition of colorful buildings. So it's a really fun place to go. You can see tango, eat at some of the restaurants there. So that's a fun neighborhood I'm ready to go to. And then this is the Colón Theater. It's the biggest theater in Buenos Aires. Last time I was here, saw an opera there and a ballet. If you're willing to stand in the back, you can get really cheap tickets here. So it's a cool way to kind of expose yourself to the arts and see some new shows. So I'll be ready to go back to that once it's open again, but that'll be a while because you can see there's so many seats. So it's a lot of people. And then last time I showed you, I think, a couple pictures of Patagonia, but this is Patagonia. It's the southernmost part of the country. And I don't know, originally I was going to travel for some of my research, visit the remote areas and the clinics there to see how the telemedicine was working on the other side of the system, so in the city and also in the country. So there's two places where I could do that. It would be Patagonia or up in Jujuy. I don't know if that will happen, but if it does, I'd be excited to go here. But you can see the mountains, the blue water. I didn't know you could have water that color until we saw this glacier. And then this is Jujuy. So that would be the other place I would go. The Jujuy is the northwest, so the Andes Mountains. So all of the towns are very small. It takes like 2 hours by bus to get between them. It's very remote villages, but there's a lot of cool culture there. That is where a lot of the indigenous population of Argentina still lives. So about 15% of houses there have at least one indigenous member or descended directly. So that would be like the people who, the native population in South America. So there's a very different culture there than in the city where I am now. Yeah, those are some pictures.
All right. Wow. Thanks for that great update. It sounds like in the midst of all of this, you're still managing to keep busy with your work. And
yeah.
What else do you do during the day?
Well, I do some journal reading. So I've looked up what research the hospital has been publishing recently so that I'm up to date and I can talk to them when I get back. I do some yoga in the morning when I wake up. I spend time practicing Spanish with the people I live with. So I'm really working on improving my language skills right now so that when it's time to get into research, I'll be much better prepared. Yeah.
Great. I realized after I asked it, that's a hard question. It's hard for people to account for their time these days, but it sounds like you're doing a lot of good, productive things. The last time we spoke, you were, and this was in your previous apartment, I know, you were talking about your neighbors and the possibility of doing some sort of a rooftop grill out that's tied to an Argentinian food tradition. Can you tell us if that happened or how that went?
Yeah, so that's called an asado. So it's basically when you can do it anyway, any type of fire, usually wood or charcoal, and almost any cut of meat, and you spend the day grilling and you spend time together. The meat takes a long time to cook, but it's really more of the social experience of all being together and eating. So at my old apartment, yeah, my neighbor got a grill and had set it up and invited us to have an across the rooftop asado. So we cooked up some ojo de bife, which is a type of steak, some potatoes, some red peppers, morcilla, which is a blood sausage, and chorizo, which is a spicy sausage. And basically, he was on his roof, and my host and I were on our roof, and the smell of cooking food was delicious. We spent probably 2 hours at least up there, and we were passing food back and forth across our little hallway between our two houses. So it was a fun experience to kind of maintain some of the tradition during this crazy time.
Awesome. Wow. It sounds incredible. And I would encourage anyone who's interested in seeing some great photos of what that event and that tradition can look like to go onto Paula's Exchange homepage, which my colleague Colin has dropped a link to in the chat bar, and check out her article about that tradition. It's such a cool one.
For sure.
So there's a holiday coming up in Argentina. What is the significance of May 25th?
So May 25th is a big holiday here in Argentina. In Spanish, it's called 25 de Mayo. And it's a patriotic holiday. So if you think kind of like we have patriotic holidays in the United States, we have Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July. This is a patriotic holiday here. And they have big military demonstrations. They have parades downtown in the capital. You can usually see like a military band playing marches. And there's street food. Everyone wears little blue and white ribbons that are the colors of Argentina's flag, but it signifies the patria. So like the founding fathers, sort of. And if you were going to think about like history in the United States, so this isn't like Argentina's 4th of July. They celebrate that on July 9th is their Independence Day. Argentina was originally a colony of Spain. So they declared their independence from Spain on July 9th. But this May 25th holiday is kind of like when they first formed a government that said, we want to declare, like we want independence from Spain. How are we going to do that? So if you were thinking about the United States history, it would be kind of like when the first Continental Congress was formed. I believe it was in Philadelphia, but I'm not sure. And all of the founding fathers, Washington, Franklin, Adams, Jefferson, those people sat around and said, we need to start thinking about how we're going to declare independence from England. So it's not 4th of July, but it's another patriotic holiday celebrating the beginning of the process of becoming their own country.
All right, fantastic. That unfortunately is probably something that will be impacted by COVID-19, another thing to add to the list, right?
Yeah, there's usually like a lot of outdoor celebrations. People have asados with their family and friends. There's parades, festivals, the street food, which I'm going to be really sad about missing those fresh dulce de leche filled churros. But I think people are going to find a way to celebrate it differently this year. So maybe they'll still have an asado, but they'll do it over video call with their family who lives someplace else. And so they'll still spend that time together, but maybe technology will help. I know we're going to have chocolate caliente and some pastries here. So it's like hot chocolate, but instead of like a powder, you melt a whole bar of chocolate in a glass of hot milk. And so it's just pure deliciousness. So we're going to be celebrating over here too.
That sounds fantastic. Wow. Whole bar of chocolate just melted in milk sounds amazing.
It's delicious.
I want to just put in a big plug here for all of our live stream viewers. If you have a question for Paula, please drop it in the chat. I'd be happy to pass it along. Paula, I'm curious about this Fulbright week at Reach the World and getting a Fulbright grant and getting to do this kind of work. I know yours has been interrupted like everybody else's a little bit, but what was it like? What made you decide to apply for a Fulbright grant?
So when I studied abroad here 2 years ago, when I was still getting my bachelor's degree, I had a professor here who was teaching my research methods class who had done a Fulbright in the United States. So she's from Argentina, but she had done one of the foreign Fulbright grants and gone and studied, I believe in Philadelphia. And so she was like, Paula, the research project you're doing right now, you can turn that into a proposal for a grant to come back and keep doing that research. And I was so in love with Argentina when I was here that I was like, they'll pay me to come back? Okay, sign me up. So that kind of started my process. And then from there, it was probably 4 or 5 months of working on an application with an advisor at my university in the United States. I had to write a proposal for my grant for the project I wanted to do. And then I had to write a personal statement about myself. And those went through a lot of edits, first from my advisor and then from a panel of professors. I got recommendation letters from people here, from the hospital, from professors. And that all got turned in October of 2018, probably. And then I had to wait till January to find out if I was a semifinalist. And then I didn't hear that I got a grant until March of 2019. And then I didn't come to Argentina until March of 2020. So it was a very long process, but very worth it.
All right. So it sounds like some advice to people interested in getting a grant would be to think ahead and get the process started.
Yeah, think ahead.
What is it like? I don't know if you were living with a family in your previous apartment, but what is it like living with an Argentinian family?
Yeah, in the apartment where I was before, I was just living with an older lady, and so it was different. We were both adults. We kind of did our own thing more of the time. Right now, I'm living in an apartment where there's 2 teenagers and then the mom and a bunch of pets. So it's different. They are doing virtual school, so we have that experience as well. So I'm kind of seeing what it's like virtual school here versus virtual school that I know like my brother is doing back in the United States. So it's kind of interesting to compare that. And I think there's just like a lot more activities, a lot more happening. We have some shared interests in TV shows or movies sometimes. Last night, the movie Megamind was playing on the TV and I heard the voice talking. I was like, are you guys watching Megamind? And they're like, yeah, we love it. So there's like some things that we can share because we're closer to the same age. So sometimes musicians or other things, there's shared conversation topics, which is nice.
That's really nice, especially when you spend so much time in the house.
Yeah, exactly. We spend a lot of time together. So it's nice to have some common foods we like to eat. Everyone loves empanadas. I mean, if anyone's been reading my articles, they know I talk about empanadas every other week, pretty much. That's my quarantine obsession. But yeah, we have a lot of shared things.
We had a question in the chat bar about the weather in Argentina right now. What has the weather been like for you?
The weather for the last couple of days has been really good. A couple weeks ago, it was getting cold fast, and I was worried because it's not winter yet. And if it was this cold already, how cold was winter going to be? But it's been sunny for probably the last 5 days. I don't think we have had rain in a while. And the leaves are starting to change. So we get that nice kind of wind where you can hear the leaves rustling and kind of falling down to the ground. But if you're sitting in the sun, it's still comfortable to be outside in just like a t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt.
Okay. You were saying that in just a couple days, the stay-at-home order is expected to, or is going to expire, but you're thinking it's probably going to be extended. Is that right?
Probably. since the quarantine started in March, they seem to have quarantine orders for like about 2 weeks at a time, and then they reevaluate. So it's been extended every time since then. And I think that Argentina is doing really well. People have been very good at following the orders. People have kind of adjusted their life to make this work. And they've seen a really flat curve with like their number of cases. So it's doing really well. But I think that we're just not at the point yet where it's going to end. So it's just probably a matter of days until it gets extended again. But I think people are doing well coping so far.
That's good. That's good to hear. I'm curious. You brought up the theater, which looked gorgeous. Are there other places like that in and around Buenos Aires that are really well known or recognized landmarks that might be fun for people to look up on Google Maps or something, where if they were interested in doing their own virtual exploration of Buenos Aires?
Yeah, you should definitely look up the Casa Rosada. So the Casa Rosada translates to the pink house. And that's right downtown in the Plaza de Mayo. That's like where the executive branch of the government works. So their president's office is in this Casa Rosada. And there's some fancy ballrooms. And they have a hall of the presidents where there's like the bust head statues of past presidents there. And so you can see pictures of that. It's not where the president lives, so it's not exactly like our White House, but it is where the president works. And if you want to see it, you can watch the movie Evita, which is a musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And they filmed a version of it with Madonna, and they got permission from the government to film her speeches, giving speeches from the balcony of the Casa Rosada at the actual Casa Rosada here. So when I went on a tour there, I went on the balcony and I touched the same column that Madonna touched when she was filming. So yeah, you can definitely see that in a movie or in pictures. It's a cool building.
Very cool. A good activity for those of us who are watching more TV or movies than we usually do. If you want to dive a little bit deeper, check out Evita. Very cool. How about, I'm interested, just because people have more of a chance to research various aspects of places they're interested these days. How about famous historical figures? Are there any that you can think of that might give people a better sense of Argentinian history?
Well, Eva Perón, who is the musical Evita is about Eva Perón, is like sort of the Princess Diana of Argentina a little bit. She was the wife of one of the presidents, Juan Perón. And just loved by the people. She kind of had a Cinderella story. She grew up pretty poor. She moved to Buenos Aires when she was young because she wanted to be a movie star. And she ended up getting pretty famous doing radio and things like that. And then she met Juan Perón. And she died young from cancer or something, I believe. But in this famous cemetery in Buenos Aires, her grave still has flowers on it every day. Most of these people are like long gone. They don't really have a lot of family anymore, but her grave always has fresh flowers on it. The people here love her. So she's kind of a national icon. And then I think you could sort of like Simón Bolívar helped a lot with the independence here. He helped a lot of countries of South America gain their independence from Spain. And then the other one, Che Guevara. So Che Guevara, I don't know, there's the movie like The Motorcycle Diaries. There's a movie that's like just, I think, called Che. But he was a revolutionary. He started in Argentina, grew up here, and then he did this long motorcycle journey up through Argentina, Peru, Colombia, and he helped free Cuba during the Cuban Revolution. So he didn't do most of his work in Argentina, but he's from Argentina and grew up here and was a doctor here. So he's a pretty famous Argentinian figure too. Okay.
Wow, great. Thank you for that. Sorry, I feel like I put you on the spot a little bit with history, but like everything, you know the answer.
Take a second to think about it.
What do you think that kids in the U.S. should know if they are just sort of getting to know more about Argentina, and what should they have in their minds? What is their takeaway from this exchange that they should think of when they think of Argentina?
I think like the biggest thing is that Argentina is such a diverse country. So like I always think of it, it's not the United States, but I always think of it that way, that like you have your East Coast, New York, Boston type areas, you have your LA, Texas. There's so many different landscapes, so many different kinds of people, so many different styles of life. I think that's very similar here. So you have Patagonia in the south, that's very remote, very isolated, lots of natural beauty. You have the Buenos Aires capital city that is very much influenced by European immigration and European styles. So it appears very different from a lot of other cities in the country you might visit. You have the Andes Mountains in the north, which provide a different style of life, a different, like sometimes even different food you get in different places because of what is available, more fish in some areas, goat, sheep, and others. So I think it's important to just remember that you can't really generalize Argentina as a country because every province, every area has its own special traits and its own way of life. So yeah, that was what I would say is most important.
Great, that was a great overview. Thank you. We have one more question from the chat, and then I'll ask you my final question. The question from the chat is, what is the IT infrastructure like? Wi-Fi, internet speed, is it similar to the United States?
I can't say because I haven't been everywhere in the United States. Where I live in the United States, I'm from Pennsylvania. We have good internet connection. And I would say in Buenos Aires, for the most part, you have good internet connection. Sometimes it just cuts out for no reason and then comes back 15 or 20 minutes later and you don't ever know why. But I would say that those aren't super common, although it has happened to me at an inconvenient time in the middle of a Zoom. So I'm always sitting here crossing my fingers that it'll work for our whole call together. But like cell phone service in the city is fine. Where I had issues was when I hit Jujuy up in the Andes Mountains. I had no cell service for most of the time I was there. That's just because the towns are so far apart that you don't really get coverage there. And then you're also at high altitude. So there's a lot, like you're driving switchback up a mountain. And so it's harder to get the infrastructure and the materials up there to increase that as well. And I think there's kind of less demand for some of those services there, just again, because of style. And then they're in Patagonia, it's really bad too. So they use like satellite connection for their Wi-Fi. So the upload and download speeds are really long. So make friends with the people at your hostel in Patagonia because you're not going to be watching Netflix all night.
Yeah, I would guess that's a big deal when it comes to your work, especially when you're trying to connect all of those different regions of the country with each other.
Yeah, the infrastructure definitely is like one of the things that like they've had to develop this telemedicine program along with a different national program that is increasing infrastructure to internet and telecommunications in certain areas of the country. And I think the connections when you do the video calls, at least that I've seen, the bigger hospitals are more established and have better infrastructure set up. And so that they have the connection more readily accessible.
All right, well, fantastic. Paula, we'll close on my final question, which we left with last time we connected. And I don't know if your answer has changed, or maybe this will give you a chance to give a different answer to a complex question. But once you are released from your COVID-19 confinement, are there any new places on your radar that you're hoping to get to? I know you showed us a couple within Buenos Aires, and there were a couple related to your research. Is there anyone in particular that you're just super excited about getting to?
Oh, I think I said Bariloche last time, maybe. I don't know. I still want to go there because it's going to be winter time if we ever get out of here. And that's the northern part of Patagonia, so I haven't been there before. But they have a lot of connection to German immigration in the past, and so they have the best chocolate in the country there. So I'm excited for that. But I think that, yeah, I don't know that my answers really changed. Ushuaia, that's in Patagonia too. That's the southernmost city in the world. So that's a fun bucket list place to go. But like, honestly, I'm just mostly excited to get out of my house and be able to go sit at an outdoor table at a cafe and drink a cup of coffee that I did not make myself, and it'll taste so much better. I'll be happy to have a meal at a restaurant sometime. So I think big picture, my answer stays the same about cities I still want to visit while I'm here. But like in the short term, I'll be really happy to just have like a normal day in the city.
That is the perfect answer. I feel like a lot of people are nodding their heads saying, yes, me too. Like wherever they are in the world, they just want to get out and have some coffee that I didn't make myself. Paula, it's always so much fun to connect with you. You're doing a phenomenal job with your virtual exchange. I hope that all of our live stream viewers and anyone who's viewing this recording after the fact, go to the link in the chat sidebar and check out your written articles. You're really doing a fantastic job of painting a picture under tough circumstances of everyday life in Buenos Aires. So thank you so much for your work and all the things you're doing to help inspire students in the US. I also want to thank our live stream audience today for going on this journey with us. You can join us again later today. We're going to be talking about the food of the Philippines with Fulbright Foreign Language Teaching Assistant John Paul De La Rosa. And if you want to see the full lineup of Fulbright Week events, just visit athome.reachtheworld.org. And with that, we'll say goodbye, Paula. Hope you have a great week.
Hi, thanks for tuning in. It's been so fun writing the articles so far for you guys.